Foreclosures are surging across the U.S., now up 40% year over year, with 61,660 foreclosure filings in Q2 of 2025 alone. And now, with student loans exiting forbearance and 5 years of delayed mortgage defaults finally unwinding, there are clear warning signs. And in this video, I'm going to break down what's really happening with foreclosures, which states have the most foreclosures right now, and how you can find a foreclosure deal before the wave hits. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Jason Ferrier. I am the housing nerd. I've been a realtor and investor in Central Ohio for the last 7.5 years. Thanks for joining us on the Housing Nerd. I hope you enjoy today's video. So we're going to look at 2 articles for today's video. The first one is from Lance Lambert at Resi Club Analytics. The link's in my description below. The second article we're going to review is from Adam Data, but let's start with the Resi Club article. Back during the pandemic, there were hardly any foreclosures. Why? Well, this is why. Resi Club says, when COVID-19 lockdowns began, the federal government implemented a nationwide foreclosure moratorium to protect homeowners from the economic fallout. These protections, including forbearance programs, were extended multiple times. They were definitely extended. In fact, you may not know this, but they're still in place for a lot of homeowners. At the same time, a historic surge in housing demand pushed home prices to new highs during the pandemic housing boom, boosting homeowner equity and keeping foreclosure activity unusually low. But in recent quarters, foreclosures have steadily returned, inching closer to pre-pandemic 2019 levels. That foreclosure rebound picked up pace in Q1 of 2025, following the expiration of the moratorium on VA-backed foreclosures. The government basically put a moratorium, put a block on all foreclosures back during the pandemic. But then they didn't end those protections. They actually extended those moratoriums many times, and people basically couldn't get foreclosed on. But in recent quarters, that's changed. One reason it's changed is because VA loans had the longest extension on the foreclosure moratorium. And that foreclosure moratorium just ended at the beginning of 2025, unleashing a ton of foreclosures into the market. And that's something to keep in mind as we go through today's video. Before U.S. housing foreclosures rise, 90-day delinquency typically increases. While 90-day plus days credit card and auto delinquencies have surged in recent quarters, 90-day delinquencies on household mortgages remain well below pre-pandemic levels. So when you look at the percentages of household mortgage balances 90 days or more delinquent, it's really not that much. Serious delinquency rates dropped all the way to 0.44%, well under 1%, under 0.5% even, in Q1 2023. And now they stand at 0.86. Still not 1% of all mortgages are seriously delinquent. But there are 2 big events that are looming on the horizon when it comes to delinquency rates and what you need to watch out for. The first one, student loans. On the delinquency front, the most noticeable development this quarter is that student loan delinquencies surged to a 5-year high in early 2025. While the jump was expected after years of artificially low student loan delinquency rates, Fed researchers warned of serious consequences for behind student loan borrowers, including damaged credit and reduced access to mortgages and auto loans. So comment below, do you have student loan debt? Do you know somebody with student loan debt that's having a problem making their payments? Many are right now. He mentions it here briefly that there's artificially low student loan delinquency rates. On another video I did on my channel, I talk about and show you how student loan payments have been artificially low for the past few years under the SAVE program. But all that is changing soon, folks. And a lot of student loan borrowers who have mortgages are going to be faced with the dilemma of, do I make a student loan payment or do I pay my mortgage? Well, if I don't make a student loan payment, I can have my wages garnished. I could have my tax return garnished. But if I don't make my mortgage payment, I could actually be foreclosed on. When we're reviewing these delinquency rates, the other thing you got to look out for beyond the student loan debt is the fact that hundreds of thousands of current homeowners with mortgages have basically not had to make their mortgage payment over the past few years. Why? Well, because the government had programs in place to not only block foreclosures, but then they put programs in place that said, hey, if you can't make your mortgage payment, the government will make it for you and tack the missing payments on the backside of the loan. And again, There are hundreds of thousands of borrowers that took advantage of that. And here's the kicker. If one of these folks with a student loan that's defaulted tries to go out and use a mortgage forbearance or a modified mortgage program because they can't make their mortgage payment, the government won't allow them to do it, and they don't qualify if they've actually missed a student loan payment. In other words, basically all the help that you could get normally for your mortgage, if you get into a bind, will be wiped out if you miss a student loan payment. And here's something else to keep in mind. Super prime U.S. borrowers, those with credit scores above 760 who carry unpaid student loan balances, are expected to see their credit scores drop by an average of 171 points this spring. That's because student loan delinquencies, which hadn't been reported to the credit bureaus since the start of the pandemic, are now being reported again. This sudden credit hit could temporarily push some borrowers out of the housing market in 2025 and 2026. The Treasury also resumed collection tactics on student loans, including wage garnishment, tax refund seizures, raising questions about potential spillover into other areas of consumer credit. So I'm curious, comment below. If you were faced with paying your mortgage or paying your student loan, you had to pick one or the other, which one would you pay? Which one would you not pay? And here's a chart from Resi Club that shows us the percent of loan balances currently 90 days or more past due. And when you look at the student loan line, it's straight up. Look at that. Why? Because they turned off the extend and pretend program for student loans. And now it's 7.7 of all student loans are actually 90 days or more delinquent. And these folks probably won't be able to qualify for much credit at all. And if they try to go to their loan servicer for their mortgage to try to, work something out, if they fall behind, won't be able to do that either if they haven't made their student loan payment. We're not talking a small number, folks. The number of homeowners with a mortgage that have a student loan payment that could be in trouble is upwards of 4.8 million homeowners. 4.8 million. That's a ton. Before 90-day delinquencies typically increase, 30-day delinquencies usually rise. Mortgage delinquencies have returned to pre-pandemic 2019 levels. And this shows us the percentage of household mortgages transitioning into 30-plus day delinquency. You can see quarter one, 2014, basically 5% of all mortgages were moving into a 30-day delinquency. Remember, the 90-day delinquency is much lower. But just the 30-day delinquency back in 2014 was 4.92%, call it 5%. Then if you look down all the way during the pandemic, that was only 1.66%. It bottomed out at 1.59% in quarter one of 2021. But that number has been increasing. Now, quarter one, 2025, 3.71% of all mortgages are at least 30 days or more past due. And this chart here by Resi Club gives us a lot more insight into the pain that people are experiencing. I mean, take a look at this mortgage information. Like back in 2009, for mortgages, you had approximately 12.4% of all mortgages were at least 30 days or more past due. And then it dropped substantially. It bottomed out during the pandemic and then started increasing rapidly, and now back to pre-pandemic levels. And look at the HELOCs, or home equity lines of credit. That's also increasing. So there's no doubt there's pain when it comes to credit cards, student loans, auto, mortgages, certainly. You can just see it in these numbers. People are having a problem making some of these payments. So Resi Club wraps up the article by saying, while U.S. home foreclosures remain low and below pre-pandemic 2019 levels, the 30-day plus delinquency data suggests that foreclosures could gradually near pre-pandemic 2019 by the end of this year. If that trend accelerates, we'll be sure to keep you informed. That's great. I'll definitely update you guys when we get a new Resi Club article. But now let's move to the other article, and that's from Adam Data. And this one's called U.S. Foreclosure Activity Increases Quarterly in Quarter 1 of 2025. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but what I am going to do is go down to where they talk about the states with the most foreclosures. And the link for this article is in the description as well. So this table here on Adam Data shows us the state rank, the state name, total properties with foreclosure filings. Then they look at the rate of foreclosure. So this number right here for the nation means that one foreclosure out of every 1,515 homes. And then it shows us the rate of change from quarter 4 of 2024 to quarter 1 of 2025, basically a quarter over quarter look. And then they show us the year-over-year change, quarter one of 2024 compared to quarter one of 2025. Where is the highest foreclosure rate in the US? Well, it's Delaware. 602 total foreclosures, 1 out of 761 housing units had a foreclosure filing. That's up 89.91% quarter over quarter and up 19% year over year. Number two, Illinois, 6,355 total foreclosures. That's 1 out of every 857 housing units. That rate is up 48.69% quarter over quarter and up 15.76% year over year. Number three, Nevada, 1,496 total foreclosure filings right now. That's 1 out of every 874 housing units, up 16.5% quarter over quarter, up 11% year over year. Here's my state, Ohio, ranked 11th in the country. Total foreclosure filings, 4,135. 1 out of every 1,275 housing units had a foreclosure filing, up 1.65% quarter over quarter, down 18% year over year. But you can come to the link in my description and check this out for yourself and look at your state. Now, the next thing we'll look at on this ATTOM report is the average days to complete a foreclosure. And that's pretty shocking. It's actually going down, but it spiked at over 1,200 days back in quarter three of 2023. You can see that right here. And then the number of days has kind of gone up and down, but now it's trending down to 671 days. What does that mean for you? Well, if you're out looking for a foreclosure or you're hoping for some type of foreclosure wave to hit the market in the next 4 months, 6 months, even 12 months and wreck the housing market, well, the foreclosures right now are taking on average 671 days to actually go through the system. And that's nearly 2 years. So even if we see foreclosure filings go through the roof, you got to remember it's going to take over 600 days for them to even hit the street. The other reason why that's important to know is because if you're out there trying to buy a foreclosure, sometimes the process can take a long time. Now we're going to take a look at 2 ways that I find foreclosures to actually purchase. And you can probably do the same thing depending on where you live. The first way I find foreclosures is by the sheriff's auction. So in my county where I live, Licking County, Ohio, strange name I know, they have a sheriff's sale, and a lot of other counties do this. And they will sell and auction off properties for not only mortgages, but also taxes or any other lien for that matter. For instance, if I look at the foreclosures that are coming up, this one hits the mark right here. 618 Deanna Stroll Road in Heath, Ohio, appraised amount $260,000. I can actually click this button right here, and it will take me to the county auditor site to actually look at the parcel and see what's happening with it. I mean, take a look at this home. It's actually a halfway decent looking property. Like, this is a prime candidate for a potential flip, even a rental, or a owner occupied property. And if you're looking for a home to live in, don't be afraid of foreclosures. You got to know what you're doing. You can't just jump in, but I wouldn't run away from them either, because you have an advantage that investors don't have. Investors like me have to make the numbers work or the deal doesn't make sense. Being an owner occupant, you have a lot more flexibility, not only with the loan you can get, but definitely with the numbers and the price you can pay, because you could live in the house and fix it up over time versus having to run in immediately and fix the whole thing up to resell or put a renter in. So that's one way I find foreclosure. The second way I find foreclosures is with a software like PropStream. And the link for this software is in my description below. This is not a free site. You can get a free trial, but it costs around $100 a month. But it's very powerful for finding off-market properties, even in non-disclosure states like Texas. So if you're someone who thinks I have to use the MLS to find a deal in Texas, completely wrong. You can find it using software like this. And so PropStream and other softwares like it allow you to look for pre-foreclosure. So right now I'm looking in Licking County, Ohio, same place that we were looking at with the sheriff's auction. And now I find this property here, 55 Weeping Willow Run in Johnstown, Ohio, close to the Intel plant, by the way. And it looks like a decent property. I mean, it's one that a lot of people would like to live in. And this site actually shows you the name of the owner, shows you the mailing address. It's all public information in Ohio anyway, so I'm not disclosing anything I shouldn't. It gives you all the details about the property. It even tells you the pre-foreclosure details, what's happening with the pre-foreclosure. And look at that. It's actually a homeowners association that's foreclosing. They even have it in here that it was listed back in 2022 for $183,000 and didn't sell. So how I use this software is I'll go out and drive by a property like this to make sure it exists, because you got to do that. Be surprised. People do bid on foreclosure sometimes without knowing the property actually exists. And I've heard of people bidding on properties and it ends up being a burnt down house or an empty lot. So you got to confirm the parcel number and that the property exists and it's something you'd want to purchase just by driving by. Most of these, here's another one, 487 Wellington Avenue. And this one looks like it was actually listed on the market at some point. It did sell for in 2021 for 170 grand, but something happened because now it's being foreclosed on. And you can see the home here. Looks like a decent little home. 3-bed, probably 1 bath. Actually, it has 2 baths. So this property looks like it could be a great owner-occupied property. Could be one to flip, maybe rent. Not sure, you have to analyze the deal, but this is how I find foreclosures. I have found foreclosures this way or by the sheriff's auction. Now, one of the things that would help me out a lot, and it doesn't cost you anything, is to hit the like button on the video if you got some value and you liked it. Hit the like button. Also, subscribe to The Housing Nerd and share my video. Whatever you do, though, comment on this video. Now, I'm constantly making videos about the housing market, and YouTube thinks you'll like this one right here.